Revenge with Karen.
You know that specific sound a pair of $1,200 Christian Laubautins makes on polished concrete? It's not just a click, it's a declaration of war. It's a rhythmic, sharp clack, clack, clack that says, I have never had to worry about a mortgage in my life, and I am about to ruin yours. I was standing near the back of the atrium at Westvale Systems, holding a lukewarm cup of breakroom roast that tasted like battery acid and despair. Been the director of corporate real estate for 19 years. That means I knew exactly how much that polished concrete floor cost per square foot, $18.50 installed. I knew the HVAC load required to keep this glass atrium from turning into a greenhouse, and I knew that the lease on the coffee machine was expiring in 3 weeks. But apparently, I was obsolete. Leila Westphale, the founder's daughter, swept into the room like a hurricane in a Versace blazer. She had that specific glow that only comes from a lifetime of organic juices and zero consequences. She was 32, had an MBA she probably bought, and had just been appointed CEO after her father, Old Man Westvale, decided to retire to a vineyard in Napa to find himself drink himself into a stupor away from shareholder meetings. Good morning, team, Leila chirped. Voice had that jagged, manic positivity that makes HR managers break out in hives. She didn't use a microphone. She projected, today marks a new era. Westvale 2.0, we are trimming the fat, we are pivoting, we are disrupting our own legacy. I took a slow sip of my terrible coffee. Trimming the fat is corporate speak for firing anyone who remembers how the servers actually work. Before I go any further, before the security guards try to tackle me, do me a favor. If you enjoy stories about corporate demolition and the beautiful art of malicious compliance, go ahead and hit subscribe button and maybe give this a like. It helps the algorithm find the other disgruntled employees out there. And trust me, we're going to need a support group after what I'm about to tell you. Okay, back to the execution. Leila scanned the room. Her eyes weren't looking for people, were looking for targets. When her gaze landed on me, she didn't blink. She smiled. A sharp, predatory grin that showed too many teeth. Evelyn, she said. The room went dead silent. You could hear the hum of the vending machines in the hallway. Step forward, please. I didn't move immediately. I adjusted my glasses. I smoothed the front of my navy blazer, bought at Macy's on sale 5 years ago. Sensible, durable, invisible. I walked to the front of the room, sensible flats making no noise compared to her stilettos. Everyone, Leila gestured to me like I was a museum exhibit of an extinct species. This is what I'm talking about. The old guard, the stagnant bureaucracy. Evelyn here has been managing our facility since before TikTok existed. And frankly, we don't need managers anymore. We need visionaries. We need agility. She turned to me, dropping the smile. Evelyn, consider this your notice. Effective immediately. We're outsourcing real estate and facilities to a cloud-based firm in Austin. They're cheaper, faster, and frankly younger. A murmur rippled through the crowd. I saw Marcus, the company's general counsel, standing to Leila's right. Marcus was a good lawyer, but he was weak. He looked at his shoes. He knew this was a PR nightmare, a potential age discrimination suit wrapped in a wrongful termination bow, but he was too terrified of the new vision to speak up. Want me to leave now? I asked. My voice was steady. I don't scream, I negotiate. Right now, Leila said, checking her Apple Watch. Security will escort you. Leave your laptop. And please don't make a scene, it's so analog. I nodded. Slowly, calmly, I didn't cry, I didn't beg. I didn't shout about my 19 years of loyalty, or the time I came in at 3:00 a.m. because a pipe burst in the server room, and I was the only one with the plumber's personal cell number. I simply reached into my oversized tote bag. Very well, I said. If I'm no longer the director of real estate, I suppose I shouldn't be holding onto these. I pulled out a heavy brass ring. It wasn't a digital keycard. It was a physical, jangling, heavy-duty keyring with about 15 old-school keys on it. Master keys. Skeleton keys. Keys that looked like they belonged to a dungeon master. I placed them gently on the sleek glass podium in front of Leila. Clink. The master set, I said softly. Campus access. Warehouse perimeter. The sub-basement archives and the executive suite override. Leila rolled her eyes. Cute. We use keycards, Evelyn. Keep your antiques as a souvenir. But Marcus, the lawyer, finally looked up. His eyes locked onto that brass ring. Specifically, he was looking at the small red tag attached to the largest key. The color drained from his face so fast he looked like he'd been bleached. Leela, Marcus whispered. It was a strangled sound. Leela, those aren't just facility keys. Hush, Marcus, Leela snapped. She waved a hand at security. Get her out of here. 2 guards, boys I'd hired myself, guys whose kids' names I knew, stepped forward, looking apologetic. Sorry, Miss Monroe, one mumbled. It's fine, David, I said. You're just doing your job. I turned back to Leela one last time. She was already looking at her phone, bored with her own power play. She had no idea what she had just done. She thought she was throwing out the trash. She didn't realize she was throwing out the load-bearing wall of the entire building. Good luck with the cloud-based management, I said. I hear the reception is terrible in the basement. I walked out. I didn't look back. But as the glass doors slid shut behind me, I saw Marcus frantically grabbing the key ring, his hands shaking, bringing it close to his face to read the tag. I knew what it said. I wrote it there myself 12 years ago. Property of Aspen Threshold Partners, owner use only. Leela had wanted a show. She wanted to prove she was the boss. Well, she certainly proved something. She proved that you should never fire the person who holds the keys until you know exactly whose locks they open. And she was about to find out that Westvale Systems didn't actually own the ground she was standing on. I did. To understand why Marcus the lawyer looked like he was about to vomit a terrified lung onto the podium, you have to understand the history of Westvale Systems. Or rather, you have to understand the history of Westvale's apathy. 19 years ago, I started, the company was just a chaotic startup in a leased warehouse. Old man Westvale, Leela's father Todd, was a genius engineer and a terrible businessman. He treated tax law like a suggestion and viewed paperwork as a personal insult. He wanted to build servers, write code, and buy sports cars. He did not want to deal with property taxes, zoning variances, or liability insurance. About 7 years into my tenure, Westvale exploded. We're drowning in cash and needed to expand. Todd wanted to buy a massive campus in Silicon Valley, 3 buildings, a parking structure, and a warehouse. It was a $50 million acquisition. But Todd had a problem. He was personally leveraged to the hilt due to a messy divorce. Leela's mom took the yacht. Todd kept the debt. And the company's credit rating was shaky because he kept forgetting to file quarterly reports. Banks weren't keen on lending Westvale the full amount for the real estate. I was the facilities manager back then. I sat in the meeting where Todd was throwing a tantrum, throwing Sharpies at a whiteboard because the bank wanted a higher down payment. I don't have time for this. Todd shouted, I need that building. We have servers sitting in the rain. Evelyn, fix it. Fix the bank's lending criteria. I asked, looking up from my notepad. Fix the ownership, he yelled. Don't care who owns it, I just need to use it. Set up a shell, set up a trust, I don't care. Just get the title signed so I can move the equipment in. That was the moment. The golden ticket. See, Todd didn't care about assets. He cared about operations. He viewed real estate as a liability, something you had to clean, insure, and pay taxes on. He wanted the utility of the building without the headache of the deed. So, I proposed a solution. Strategic holding entity. I created an LLC called Aspen Threshold Partners. It sounds corporate, vague, and boring, exactly the kind of name eyes slide right over. I told Todd that this entity would purchase the land, hold the liability, and lease it back to Westvale on a triple net basis. This would keep the mortgage off Westvale's balance sheet, improving the company's debt-to-equity ratio for future investors. Todd didn't even read the proposal, just heard improved debt ratio, and I don't have to sign the mortgage. Brilliant, he said, signing the authorization form while eating a bagel. Do it. Make it happen, Evelyn. Here is the detail that slipped through the cracks of history. Aspen Threshold Partners wasn't a subsidiary of Westvale. It was mine. I legally formed the LLC. I put up my own savings and a significant loan from my inheritance for the down payment. Bank approved the loan because Westvale signed a 20-year lease agreement that guaranteed the mortgage payments. Essentially, Westvale was paying my mortgage, and I was building equity. Was it illegal? Absolutely not. It was fully disclosed in the stack of documents Todd signed. It was right there on page 402, Aspen Threshold Partners, a California limited liability company, sole member, Evelyn Monroe. Todd just never read page 402. Either did Marcus, who was a junior associate at the time and was more focused on hitting on the paralegals than reviewing title deeds. For 12 years, I played the part of the dutiful employee. I managed the buildings. I fixed the leaks. I negotiated the cleaning contracts. And every month, Westvale Systems wired a massive rent check to Aspen Threshold Partners. And every month, Aspen Threshold Partners paid the mortgage and banked the profit. I never flaunted it. Drove a 2015 Honda CR-V. I brown-bagged my lunch. I wore sensible shoes. I let them treat me like the help. I let them think I was just Evelyn from facilities, the woman you call when the toilet is clogged or the AC is too cold. I became the landlord they forgot they had. Over time, I expanded. When Westvale needed a new satellite office, Aspen Threshold bought it and leased it to them. When they needed a secure data storage facility, Aspen Threshold acquired the land. By the time Leela stormed in with her stilettos and her Westvale 2.0 vision, my little LLC held the title to the headquarters, the R&D lab, and the primary distribution warehouse. I essentially owned the chessboard while they were arguing over the pawns. So when Leela fired me, she didn't just fire an employee. She fired the entity that granted Westvale the legal right to occupy its own headquarters. The best part? The 20-year master lease, the one that kept the rent cheap and the terms favorable, had a very specific clause regarding the termination of the primary liaison. That liaison was me. I sat in my car in the parking lot, watching the security guards patrol the perimeter. I pulled up the banking app for Aspen Threshold on my phone. The balance was healthy, very healthy. Trim the fat, I whispered to myself, watching Leela's silhouette in the executive window on the 4th floor. Honey, you just cut the artery. The devil isn't in the details, the devil is in the other inbox. 3 weeks before Leela officially took the throne, I knew she was coming. The rumors had been swirling around the water cooler, or rather, the sparkling water dispenser, for months. The daughter is ascending. The purge is coming. A professional who actually cares about the continuity of the business. Even if I own the building, I did my due diligence. I prepared a transition of assets and infrastructure strategy document. It was 40 pages long. It was dry. It was dense. It was formatted in Times New Roman, size 11, with single spacing. It was the most important document in the company's history. I emailed it to Leela, CCing her new chief of staff, 24-year-old named Braden, who listed vibe curation as a skill on his LinkedIn profile. The subject line was critical, infrastructure leases, title holdings, and compliance review for FY25. I tracked the email. Braden opened it 17 seconds after I sent it. He spent a total of 4 seconds looking at it. Then, based on the server logs I could still access, because IT hadn't revoked my admin privileges yet, forwarded it to an archived folder titled Legacy Docs/Boring Stuff. I can just imagine the conversation. Braden, yo, Leela, the facility lady sent some huge manifesto about leases. Leela, ugh, delete it. We're going fully remote hybrid agile anyway. We don't need infrastructure strategies. We need synergy. If they had read page 3, paragraph 2, would have seen this sentence. Please note that 85% of operational square footage is leased from third-party partner Aspen Threshold. The Master Lease Agreement, MLA, is contingent upon the continued employment of the designated asset manager, Evelyn Monroe, to maintain tenanting good standing status. Failure to retain said manager triggers an immediate renegotiation clause under Section 14. B. They didn't read it. So, 2 days after my dramatic exit, I was at home. My house is in Marin County, a nice, quiet mid-century modern tucked away in the hills. It's paid off. The garden is full of drought-resistant succulents and lavender because I don't believe in wasting water or energy. I was deadheading my roses, wearing gardening gloves that cost more than Braden's entire outfit, when my phone buzzed. I ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. I took a sip of iced tea and checked the screen. It was a notification from the Westvale internal system. They hadn't cut off my email access yet. Amateurs. I hadn't logged in, but the push notifications were still active on my lock screen. Urgent, access denied server room B. Urgent, power failure executive wing. Urgent, security badge system failure. I smiled. See, the smart building system that Westvale was so proud of. The one that controlled the locks, the lights, and the climate, was registered to the building owner, me. The account was linked to my corporate credit card, the one they had canceled immediately upon my termination. When they canceled my card, the auto-pay for the cloud-based building management system bounced. The vendor, a company called SecureNet, has a very strict policy. Payment fails, service suspends, immediately. Back at the office, chaos was unfolding. I could picture it perfectly. Leela trying to swipe her badge into the executive suite, only to get a sad red light. Braden trying to get into the server room to curate the vibes, only to find the maglocks engaged. And the air conditioning. Oh, the air conditioning. I had programmed the system to default to energy-saving mode in the event of a payment disconnect. Energy-saving mode means the AC cuts off. The blinds retract to let in full sunlight. The ambient temperature settles at a balmy 82 degrees to protect the environment. I peeled off my gardening gloves and walked into my kitchen. I opened my laptop, my personal MacBook, not the Lenovo brick they made me leave behind. I logged into the Aspen Threshold portal. There was a new message in the inbox from Marcus, the lawyer. Subject: clarification on key handoff body. Evelyn, we need to talk. Seems to be a misunderstanding regarding the ownership structure of the campus. The keys you left, they don't seem to work on the manual overrides. Also, the bank is asking questions about a change of control provision. Please call me back immediately. I closed the laptop. Misunderstanding, I said to the empty room. No, Marcus, it's a terrifyingly clear understanding. I decided to make a salad, a nice niswis. I had all the time in the world. They, on the other, were currently sweating through their silk blouses in a glass box that was rapidly becoming a terrarium. While I was enjoying my salad and the scent of blooming jasmine, Leela was sitting in a boardroom that smelled of nervous sweat and overheating server racks. I wasn't there, obviously, but I know exactly what happened because the banker sitting across from her, a man named Jeffrey from J.P. Morgan, is an old friend of mine. We play bridge on Thursdays. Leela had called the meeting to secure a bridge loan for innovation. Basically, she wanted $20 million liquid cash to rebrand the company, fire the remaining olds, and launch a marketing campaign featuring influencers who don't know what a semiconductor is. Her plan was simple: use the Westvale campus as collateral. The property value had skyrocketed over the last decade. It was worth at least $80 million. Easy money. Jeffrey told me the story later over a glass of Pinot. So, Jeffrey had said, adjusting his spectacles. Miss Westvale, you want to leverage the headquarters at 400 Tech Park Drive. Exactly, Leela said, fanning herself with a folder because the AC was still dead. It's our flagship, a symbol of our solidity. Jeffrey tapped his iPad. He frowned. He tapped it again. Miss Westvale, there seems to be a discrepancy. What discrepancy? Leela snapped. Building is right here. We're sitting in it. Physically, yes, Jeffrey said slowly. But according to the title search we just ran, Westvale Systems doesn't own this building. Leela laughed, a sharp, incredulous bark. Don't be ridiculous. My father built this place. I have photos of him cutting the ribbon. He may have cut the ribbon, Jeffrey said, turning the iPad around to face her. But the deed is held by an entity called Aspen Threshold Partners. Leela blinked. Aspen. What? Aspen Threshold Partners. And according to the lien search, there is a strict no encumbrance clause. You cannot use this property as collateral because you are merely the tenant. Leela turned to Marcus, the lawyer, who was sweating profusely in the corner. Marcus, explain. Marcus cleared his throat. Well, Leela, as I was trying to tell you earlier regarding the keys, corporate structure established during the expansion phase utilized a third-party holding strategy to mitigate tax liability. And English, Marcus. Leela slammed her hand on the table. We rent the building, Leela, Marcus squeaked. We don't own it, we just rent it. From whom? Leela demanded. Who is Aspen Threshold? Is it a shell? Is it Dad? It's not your father, Jeffrey interjected, looking at the file. The managing member is listed as, let me see. Evelyn Monroe. The silence that followed must have been exquisite. I would have paid actual money to see Leela's face. The realization hitting her like a wet fish. The woman she had publicly humiliated, the woman she had fired for being old guard and obsolete, was literally her landlord. Evelyn, Leela whispered. The facilities lady? Apparently, Jeffrey said, closing his briefcase. And since you cannot pledge assets you do not own, I'm afraid this loan application is denied. Furthermore, Miss Westvale, looking at your financials, your lease agreement seems to be up for renewal review due to a change of management trigger. Have you renegotiated those terms yet? Leela stared at him blankly. Because, Jeffrey continued, twisting the knife with professional politeness, if you don't secure a long-term lease extension within 30 days of the management change, the default rate kicks in. Looking at the market value, that would triple your monthly rent. Jeffrey stood up. Call me when you have the paperwork sorted. But frankly, Miss Westvale, if I were you, I'd be less worried about rebranding and more worried about eviction. Back in Marin, I poured myself another glass of iced tea. I opened my iPad and checked the security cameras, which I still had access to, because they were hardwired into the building's proprietary network, not the company server. I saw Leela storming out of the conference room, screaming at Marcus. I saw Braden running behind her, holding a portable fan. I zoomed in on Marcus. He looked like a man who was calculating his severance package. I decided it was time to send the first official communication. Not an email, not a text. I drafted a formal notice on Aspen Threshold letterhead. Westvale Systems Executive Team from Aspen Threshold Partners Re. Notice of Lease Review and Compliance Audit. Dear Tenant, it has come to our attention that the designated liaison, E. Monroe, is no longer employed by your firm. As per Section 14b of the Master Lease, this triggers an immediate compliance audit. Please be advised that all building modifications made without owner approval must be reversed immediately. This includes the removal of the open concept wall on the third floor, structural violation, and the installation of the Zen pods in the lobby, fire code violation. We will be conducting a site inspection on Monday at 9:00 a.m. Please ensure all keys are available. Sincerely, the management. I hit print. I signed it with my favorite fountain pen. Leela wanted to play boss. Fine. I'll play landlord. I'm the kind of landlord who measures the grass height with a ruler. There's a special kind of hell reserved for corporate lawyers, and it usually involves a windowless room, fluorescent lights, and boxes of documents that smell like mildew and regret. Marcus was currently in that hell. After the disaster with the bank, Leela had ordered a forensic deep dive. She was convinced I had embezzled the property, or tricked her father, or forged documents. She wanted a loophole. She wanted a clause that said, "Just kidding, Westvale actually owns it." She sent Marcus and 3 junior associates down to the sub-basement archives. The irony? They needed the physical keys I had left on the podium just to get into the room. The electronic badges didn't work on the archive door because, you guessed it, I had never bothered to wire that room for the new system. I liked the old heavy tumbler lock. It felt secure. I watched them on the security feed. Seriously, nobody ever looks up at the little black domes in the ceiling. Marcus was sweating through his dress shirt. He was sneezing. Find the original deed, he yelled at a terrified associate named Chloe. Find the incorporation papers for Aspen Threshold. They spent 6 hours down there. What they found was not fraud. What they found was a masterclass in meticulous administration. They found the original authorization of asset transfer, signed by Todd Westvale in bold blue ink. They found the board resolution 2008-04, approving the leaseback structure, signed by the entire board of directors. They found the email chains where I explicitly asked, "Are you sure you want to structure it this way?" And Todd replied, "Yes, just get it done. I don't care about the details." But the piece de resistance was the infrastructure ownership rider. Chloe found it around 8:00 p.m. I saw her holding up a document with a yellow sticky note on it. She looked pale. She handed it to Marcus. I knew exactly which document that was. It was an agreement stating that all hardwired improvements made to the property, including the backup generators, the fiber optic cabling, the server cooling systems, and the security grid, became the sole property of the landlord Aspen Threshold upon installation, in exchange for a reduced rental rate on the land. Basically, Westvale had paid to install the equipment, but I owned it. Marcus read the document. He sat down heavily on a stack of banker's boxes. He put his head in his hands. She owns the cables. I could almost hear him whisper. She owns the literal wires in the walls. If Westvale tried to move, they couldn't take the server infrastructure. They couldn't take the generators. Would have to rip the company out by the roots, leaving behind everything that made it function. Up in the executive suite, Leela was pacing. She called Marcus on speakerphone. "Well," she demanded, "did you find the smoking gun? Can we sue her?" "Leela," Marcus said, his voice sounding tinny and defeated over the line, "we can't sue her. Every single piece of paper is signed, notarized, and board approved. It's ironclad. There has to be a way out." Leela shrieked. "Eminent domain, hostile takeover, something." "There is one thing," Marcus said, "the rider. The infrastructure rider. What about it?" "It says that, technically, she owns the fiber optic lines running into the server room, and the cooling units and the backup power, so if she terminates the lease for violation, she can legally shut them off. She doesn't just own the building, Leela. She owns the company's nervous system." Leela went silent. "Get her on the phone," Leela said, voice dropping to a dangerous growl. Offer her a settlement. Give her 6 months severance. Make her go away. I don't think 6 months severance is going to cut it, Marcus said. Just do it. I was in my living room reading a book on the history of brutalist architecture when my cell phone rang. It was Marcus. I let it go to voicemail. Then I blocked his number. If they wanted to talk to the landlord, they could follow the procedure outlined in the lease. Written requests only. Sent via certified mail. Allow 5 to 7 business days for response. I wasn't an employee anymore. I didn't have to answer the phone. I was a third-party vendor. And right now, this vendor was closed for the weekend. Leela, proving that she had learned absolutely nothing, decided that the problem wasn't her lack of ownership, but a lack of manpower. She hired a director of physical operations the next day. His name was Brad. Brad was a former logistics manager for a tech startup that delivered dog food via drone. He wore a vest and talked about optimizing the verticality. Brad lasted exactly 48 hours. His first mission was to get the AC back online. He called an HVAC repair company, not the one we had used for 15 years, but a disruptive app-based service. The technician arrived, looked at the massive industrial chillers on the roof, asked for the access codes to the digital control panel. Brad didn't have the codes. Just hack it, Brad told the technician. Bypass the panel. The technician, who didn't want to go to jail, refused. Sir, this system is locked down by the proprietor. If I force it, it triggers a silent alarm and voids the warranty. Also, it might dump the coolant as a safety measure. Brad yelled at him. The technician left. The temperature in the server room climbed to 95 degrees. The real fun started on Wednesday. I had made a small, anonymous phone call to the City Code Enforcement Division. Just a concerned citizen reporting a potential violation regarding the Zen pods Leela had installed in the lobby. I mentioned they might be blocking fire exits. At 10 o'clock a.m., Inspector Miller arrived. I know Miller. He's a stickler. He measures door widths to the millimeter. He walked into the lobby, saw the wooden meditation structures blocking the main egress path, and immediately pulled out his red tag pad. Brad ran down to meet him. Whoa, my guy, what's the vibe here? We're just creating space for mental wellness. You're creating a fire trap, Miller grunted. Let me see your certificate of occupancy and your alteration permits for these structures. Brad said, permits are in the cloud. They need to be posted, Miller said. And looking at my file, certificate of occupancy for this address is issued to Aspen Threshold Partners. Are you a representative of Aspen Threshold? No, I'm Westvale Systems. We own the place. Miller narrowed his eyes. Not according to the city. The CO is tied to the owner. If the owner didn't pull the permits for these pods, they are illegal. And since you are modifying a structure without the owner's consent, Miller slapped a bright red stop work/unsafe structure sticker on the glass doors of the main entrance. I'm citing the building, Miller announced. You have 24 hours to remove these obstructions or I'm condemning the lobby. That means nobody comes in or out. Building closed. Brad turned pale. You can't close us down. We have investors coming tomorrow. Tell it to the landlord, Miller said, handing Brad a citation. The fine is $5,000 a day. It goes to the owner of record. I'm sure she'll be thrilled to receive it. When Miller left, Brad stood there holding the citation. He looked like he was about to cry. Back in my garden, I received an automated email from the city. Notification of citation, 400 Tech Park Drive. Recipient, Aspen Threshold Partners. I smiled. A lease violation. A tenant causing code violations and fines to be levied against the landlord is a material breach of contract. Section 19. C of the lease. In the event of a material breach, the landlord reserves the right to terminate the lease with 7 days' notice and retake possession of the premises. I didn't want to evict them yet. That was too easy. I wanted them to sweat. I scanned the citation and attached it to a new email. To Leela Westvale, CEO CC, Legal Department from Aspen Threshold Partner Subject. Notice of lease violation and indemnification demand, Miss Westvale. We are in receipt of a code violation regarding unauthorized construction in the lobby. You are hereby notified that you are in breach of your lease. You have 24 hours to cure this breach. Additionally, pursuant to the stupidity clause, I didn't actually call it that, but it was implied the gross negligence clause. Rent for the current month is now subject to a 15% penalty fee. Please remit payment of $45,000 immediately. Govern yourself accordingly. Evelyn. I heard later that Brad was fired that afternoon. Leela threw a stapler at him. She was running out of people to fire. Soon, she'd have to look in the mirror. Desperation has a distinct smell. It smells like desperate voicemails left at 11:30 p.m. on a Tuesday. By the end of the first week, Leela's Westvale 2.0 vision had collapsed into Westvale survival mode. The lobby was closed due to the code violation. The servers were throttling down because of the heat. The employees were revolting because the coffee machines, also leased in my name, had been repossessed by the vendor. Leela tried to call me again. I watched the phone ring. It was her personal cell. Voicemail 1 Tuesday, 9:14 a.m. Evelyn, this is Leela. Look, need to resolve this paperwork mix-up. It's getting ridiculous. Call me back so we can sign whatever needs to be signed. Tone, annoyed, superior. Analysis, she still thinks this is a clerical error. Voicemail 2 Wednesday, 2:30 p.m. Evelyn, Marcus tells me you're blocking his calls. That's very unprofessional. We are prepared to offer you a consulting fee to come in and smooth this over. $200 an hour. Let's get this done. Tone, transactional. Analysis, she thinks she can buy me with pocket change. My consulting rate is $500 minimum. Voicemail 3 Thursday, 11:45 p.m. Evelyn, it's Leela. The city is threatening to shut off the water because the bill is in the LLC's name and the auto-pay failed. Please, we have the Q3 board meeting on Monday. I can't have the water shut off. Just pick up. Tone, panic. Analysis, finally, we're getting somewhere. I didn't pick up. Instead, I sent a courier. I hired a process server to deliver a notice of rent adjustment and renewal terms. The courier arrived at the Westvale back entrance, since the front was closed by the city, on Friday morning. He handed the thick envelope to the security guard, who handed it to Leela. She opened it in the middle of the hallway. The document outlined the terms for a lease renewal, since the previous terms were voided by my termination. Monthly rent, $1.2 million up from $400K. Security deposit, $5 million cash upfront. Lease term, month-to-month only. Special condition. The tenant acknowledges that all facility management decisions revert to the landlord's exclusive control. Leela reportedly screamed. She threw the papers on the floor. But then the text messages started. Leela, you can't do this. This is extortion. Auto reply, this is an automated message. For leasing inquiries, please contact Aspen Threshold Partners during business hours. Leela, I'm sorry about the firing. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Me auto reply, this is an automated message. Your query has been logged. Leela, my father's going to hear about this. Ah, the father card. I actually picked up my phone for that one. I texted back manually. Me, your father signed the original agreement. He knows exactly who owns the building. Maybe you should ask him why he didn't tell you. The truth was, Todd Westvale probably did forget. He was in Napa, drunk on Cabernet, likely oblivious to the fact that his daughter had fired his landlord. But the silence from Leela after that text was telling. She realized she was alone. Daddy couldn't fix this. Then came the heavy hitters. On Saturday morning, a black sedan pulled into my driveway. It wasn't Leela. It was Simon Vance, the chairman of the board of Westvale Systems. Simon is a serious man. He's 70, wears suits that cost more than my car, and doesn't suffer fools. He had been on the board when I set up the LLC, he knew. He had just been too busy counting his stock options to pay attention to the transition. He walked up to my porch. I was sitting there with my tea. Evelyn, he said, nodding respectfully. Simon, I replied. Lovely day for a drive. Made your point, he said. He didn't look angry. He looked impressed. Leela is inexperienced. She made a mistake. A mistake is a typo, Simon, I said. Firing the person who holds the deed to your company is suicide. Agreed, Simon said. The board is meeting on Monday. Emergency session. We want you there. I don't work for Westvale, I reminded him. We know, Simon said. We want you there as the landlord. We need to discuss the terms of our surrender. I smiled. I'll check my calendar. Please, Simon said. He placed a card on the table. Leela is done. We all know that. Now we just need to save the building. He turned and walked back to his car. I picked up the card. It was an invitation to the boardroom. Monday, 9:00 a.m. The end game was set. The Westvale boardroom is designed to intimidate. It has a 50-foot mahogany table, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Silicon Valley haze, chairs that look like they belong on the bridge of a starship. Usually, I stood at the back of this room, adjusting the thermostat or making sure the water pitchers were full. Today, I walked in and sat at the head of the table. Technically, the head of the table is reserved for the CEO. But when I walked in, wearing a white silk blouse and a blazer that said I own this. Nobody stopped me. Leela was sitting to the right, looking like she hadn't slept in 3 days. Hair was pulled back in a severe bun, but stray strands were escaping. She looked small. The board was there. 12 men and women who controlled billions of dollars in assets. They were all looking at me. Simon Vance cleared his throat. "Thank you for joining us, Miss Monroe." "Miss Monroe is fine," I said, "or you can address me as landlord, whatever you prefer." Leela flinched. "Let's get to the point," one of the board members, a hedge fund guy named Rick, said. "This situation, it's untenable. You're holding the company hostage." "I'm enforcing a contract," I said calmly, sliding a folder across the mahogany surface. "Westvale Systems signed a master lease. That lease required a competent liaison. You fired her. You violated the terms." "I am simply exercising my rights under the agreement. We can fight this in court," Leela snapped. Her voice was brittle. "It's a conflict of interest. You were an employee while owning the vendor." "Fully disclosed," Marcus the lawyer spoke up. He sounded tired. "I checked the files again, Leela. Page 402. It was disclosed, signed, and ratified. We have no case. If we go to court, she evicts us during the proceedings. We'd be out of business in a month." Leela slumped back in her chair. "So," Simon said, looking at me. "What do you want, Evelyn? You want your job back?" I laughed. A genuine, bright laugh that echoed in the quiet room. "My job?" I asked. "You think I want to come back and manage the cleaning crews? You think I want to coordinate the holiday party?" "No, Simon. I don't want a job." I leaned forward. "I want equity." The room went dead silent. "You're in a default position," I explained, ticking points off on my fingers. "You can't move. You can't secure financing because you have no collateral. You can't even turn on the AC without my permission. Westvale Systems is a tenant, and you are bad tenants." "I'm proposing a restructuring," I continued. "Aspen Threshold Partners will forgive the lease violations and restore the original rent rate. We will turn the servers back on. We will fix the code violations." "In exchange for what?" Rick asked. "In exchange for a seat on this board," I said, "and 5% stock in Westvale Systems." 5%? Leela shouted. "That's insane. That's millions of dollars." "It's cheaper than moving," I said coldly. "And it's cheaper than bankruptcy." I looked directly at Leela. "And one more condition," I said. "The CEO serves at the pleasure of the board, but the CEO also has to interface with the landlord. And frankly, I find the current CEO difficult to work with." Leela's eyes went wide. She looked at Simon. Simon didn't look back at her. He was looking at his hands. "If I am to invest my property into this company," I said, "I need a partner I can trust. Someone who reads the emails. Someone who understands that the foundation is just as important as the facade." "Are you suggesting we remove her?" Simon asked quietly. "I'm not suggesting anything," I said, standing up. "I'm just the landlord, but I will tell you this. I don't sign leases with children." I picked up my purse. "You have until 5 p.m. to decide. If not, the eviction notice gets filed tomorrow morning. I've already had a lovely chat with a competitor of yours who is looking for a turnkey campus with great server infrastructure." I walked to the door. "Oh," I paused, looking back at Leela. "And Leela, if you need to pack your things, I can lend you some boxes. I have plenty in the basement, but you'll need someone with a key to let you in." I walked out. Behind me, the heavy doors clicked shut. But even through the soundproofing, I heard the shouting begin. 4:45 p.m. my phone rang. It was Simon. "It's done," he said. "Short, clip, the board has voted. We accept your terms. The stock transfer is being drafted, and Leela has tendered her resignation effective immediately. We are appointing an interim CEO." "Excellent," I said. "I'll reactivate the building management system remotely. The AC should be back on within the hour." "Thank you, Evelyn," Simon said. There was a pause, and welcome to the board. Next morning, I drove to the campus. I didn't park in the employee lot. I parked in the reserved spot right in front of the glass doors, the spot that used to belong to Leela. I walked into the lobby. The Zen pods were already being dismantled by a crew I had dispatched. The air was cool and crisp. The hum of the servers was a steady, reassuring vibration in the floor. As I walked toward the elevator doors opened. Leela walked out. She was carrying a cardboard box. Just one. She looked tired. Her blazer was wrinkled. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a shell-shocked hollowness. She stopped when she saw me. We stood there for a moment. The woman who thought she was the future, and the woman she thought was the past. "You planned this," Leela said. Her voice was raspy. "From the beginning, you set us up." "I didn't plan anything, Leela," I said gently. "I just built a safety net. We're the one who decided to cut the ropes." She shifted the box in her arms. I still have shares. Your father is currently on a plane to Fiji, I interrupted. He sent me a congratulatory fruit basket this morning. Turns out he prefers dividends over drama. Leela flinched. You know, she said, trying to summon one last bit of venom. You're just a glorified landlord. You're boring. You're not a visionary. I smiled. It was the same smile I used when I negotiated a 30% reduction in waste disposal fees. Leela, I said, stepping closer. Visionaries come and go. They burn out. They get bored. They get fired. I pointed to the floor. But the person who owns the ground, they stay. Boring is what pays the bills. Boring is what keeps the lights on. You wanted to be a star. I just wanted to be gravity. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a keycard, a new one. Black mat, gold lettering, Evelyn Monroe, director. Security will escort you out, I said, echoing her words from 2 weeks ago. David is waiting by the door. Try not to make a scene. It's so analog. Leela stared at me, her mouth opening and closing. But she had nothing left. She walked past me, her heels clicking on the concrete, but the sound was different now. It wasn't a declaration of war. It was the sound of a retreat. I watched her go through the revolving doors. Then I swiped my card at the turnstile. Beep. Access granted. I walked into the elevator and pressed the button for the top floor. The doors closed, sealing me in the cool, quiet, efficient heart of the building I owned. They say you should never burn bridges. I disagree. Sometimes you don't need to burn the bridge. You just need to remind everyone that you own the toll booth. And if they don't want to pay, well, I hope they like the heat. If you enjoyed listening a competent woman dismantle a Nepo baby with nothing but paperwork and patience, please upvote and subscribe. There are plenty more stories where this came from. Corporate real estate is a jungle, and I'm the one holding the machete.